Chosen one, the low hum of resistance you've been feeling wasn't anxiety, it was your intuition detecting a literal operation against your life. This is shocking. The one paid to hurt you is now protecting you. The hired operative brought in to dismantle your momentum has undergone a radical change of heart. They were brought into a dark room and given a scope, a target and a price, but once they encountered your light, the mission collapsed. There's a room, not a fancy room, not an evil lair with dramatic lighting. A small, deliberately invisible room, carved out of a forgotten space, maybe an old building that everyone walks past without looking twice. From the outside it looks abandoned. That is the point. The person who made this room a home chose it specifically because no one would think to look there. Step inside with me. There are food wrappers on the floor. There is a makeshift place to sleep, and a few items of clothing folded nearby. It is a life stripped down to its absolute functional minimum. And yet this is not poverty, this is strategy. This is someone who has chosen to live without a trace, without a name attached to an address, without any connection that could be followed to find them. Now look at what is in this room that does not belong with the food wrappers. There is a long-range surveillance scope, the kind that lets someone sit comfortably in their own space and see the face of a person standing at a window far across the city. And next to it, there is something that makes your stomach drop, a rifle scope, square, professional, cold. This is not equipment for hunting animals. This is equipment for hunting people. Someone trained, paid, and specifically positioned has been sitting in this invisible room, looking through that scope and watching your life. This person has been learning your schedule, studying your patterns, noting when you leave and where you go and who you see, and feeding all of that information back to the person who hired them. When you sit with that image, when you genuinely feel the reality of someone having that level of detail about your movements, something in you probably says, yes, that is exactly what it has felt like, that unexplainable feeling of being watched, the sense that information about you was somehow already known by people who had no business knowing it, the way certain situations in your life felt engineered rather than accidental. That feeling was accurate. Hold this room in your mind, because we are going to come back to it, and when we do, something extraordinary will have happened inside it. When you hire someone to watch a target, you expect clinical detached observations, confirming that the target is manageable and containable. You expect the operative to look through the scope and see a problem to be solved. What you do not expect is for your operative to look through that same scope and encounter someone who changes them. Here is what was on the other side of that lens. Not a frightened person, not someone behaving like someone who suspects they are being watched. What the operative saw was a person going about daily life with a groundedness that any experienced observer of human behavior would recognize as genuinely rare. You were carrying something heavy that was visible. The resistance you were pushing against showed in the texture of your days, but you were not collapsing under it. You were not becoming bitter or contracted or small. You were converting it. You were taking everything being pressed against you and transforming it into fuel, into clarity, into a quality of presence that made the operative lower, that scope more than once, just to sit with what they had witnessed. Targets cry, targets rage, targets go numb or erratic or deep into denial. But watching you refuse, on what appeared to be a deeply fundamental level, to be diminished by circumstances designed specifically to diminish you, that was something the operative had no professional category for. That is when the first question appeared in the operative's mind. It was not yet a crisis of conscience. It was just a question, quiet and almost imperceptible, like a single crack in glass that has not yet spread. Who is this person really? Now let me tell you who sent this operative after you. Think of someone in your life, or at the edges of your life, who presents very well, professional, composed, the kind of person who handles financial matters and speaks in the language of business and carries a respectable face that people instinctively trust. Someone who looks like they have built something solid, maybe someone with family ties, maybe someone with legal authority over something that should have belonged to you. This person is the architect of the operation against you. If this message awakens something within you, hype this video for other chosen ones who need to hear this. They are not powerful, they are afraid. The performance of power they put on every single day is a costume they cannot take off, because the moment it comes off, what actually happened becomes visible. Something significant was taken. There was an inheritance, a business, an estate, a financial authority, something that was supposed to reach someone else, and instead got rerouted, intercepted, and absorbed. There was a figure in your life, someone who should have been protected, who was systematically weakened. Mental clarity was compromised. Documents were signed under circumstances that were less than honest. The ability to fight back was deliberately eroded over time until it was gone, and then what belonged to that person was absorbed by someone who had no rightful claim to it. That is the crime sitting at the center of this story. A stolen foundation, a diverted legacy, a life built entirely on what was taken from someone who trusted the wrong person. Now here is where you enter the picture. You have the gift of sight, not just intuitively, in the most practical and grounded sense. You say things, you ask questions, you look at a situation and your instincts say, something here does not add up. You have spoken, probably without even realizing the weight of what you were saying, words that landed directly on the truth of what this person did. Those words were heard simultaneously by the right people and the wrong people. The wrong people reported back. This one sees too much. This one talks, and left unchecked, this one is going to shine a light on the whole operation. So someone was hired to make sure that did not happen. Remember the room, remember the scope. It was aimed at you specifically because you are the single biggest threat to a lie that someone has been living inside for years. Not because you launched an investigation, not because you declared war, simply because you exist with your eyes open and your mouth honest. You did not have to do anything except be yourself, and being yourself was enough to make someone spend serious resources trying to stop you. I need you to fully receive this, because there is something precise about why you were chosen as a target, and understanding it is going to change how you see yourself permanently. You were not flagged as a threat because you were aggressive or confrontational. You had not already gathered evidence or publicly exposed anything. What made you dangerous was something far more fundamental and far less controllable than any of those things. You were dangerous because of the way you talk about what you know, not what you know formally, not documented knowledge, the things you say when you are just having a conversation, the observations you make without loading them with significance, the moments when you describe a situation with startling accuracy and the people in the room go quiet, not because you were trying to be profound, but because truth came out of you the way water finds its level, naturally, without effort. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your destiny engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. You have done this your whole life. You have said something casual and watched the energy in a room shift. You have named something that was not supposed to be named and watched faces change. You have asked a question that seemed entirely simple and innocent and watched someone become very careful and very deliberate with their answer. Every time you speak with that quality of natural discernment, you are holding a lamp in a dark room. You are not hunting for anything. You are not pointing the lamp deliberately at anyone. You are simply illuminated, and the things built to survive in darkness cannot survive in what comes off you when you are simply being yourself. The villain understood this. The way people who have constructed their entire life on concealment develop a sixth sense for those who can see through them. The villain understood that your clarity was an existential problem. The precise words you might say, or the exact moment you might say them, were unpredictable. What was certain was that as long as you were operating freely, their carefully constructed story was living on borrowed time, so someone was hired to borrow more time, and that decision is now the most consequential mistake the villain has ever made. While you were out there living your life, doing your work and building your dreams, every plan kept misfiring. The interference kept not landing the way it was supposed to land. The chaos kept dissipating faster than it should have. The momentum that was supposed to be killed kept regenerating. Attempts were made to cloud your perception, to create confusion around what you were sensing. Strange people appeared at exactly the wrong times and said exactly the wrong things. Situations arose that felt specifically designed to trigger you. Inexplicable runs of disruption clustered around your most important efforts at the exact moments when your breakthrough was closest. All of it was manufactured. But here is what people who run operations like this never fully understand about someone like you. You cannot fight someone whose protection operates at a frequency that the weapons being used cannot match. It is like trying to flood a mountain. The mountain does not fight the water. The water simply goes somewhere else every single time. The plans kept falling apart. The surveillance was producing information, but the information was not producing the expected results. You were not behaving the way your profile said you should behave. You were not breaking the way the operation needed you to break. There were even grander plans, things that should not be on any table, that were floated, funded, and prepared. And each time the moment of execution arrived, something intervened. A chain of events that no one could have manufactured moved the pieces on the board with a precision that left the people running the operation standing there, plans in hand, unable to explain what had just happened. You were too covered to be captured. And the operative sitting in that invisible room, that person was lowering the scope and making a decision that was going to change everything. There was a specific moment, not a gradual drift. A moment. The operative was watching you move through something genuinely hard, the kind of circumstance that breaks most people, the kind that the villain may have engineered specifically to shatter your spirit and kill your momentum. And instead of breaking, you did something that no professional framework could contain. You got still, not numb, not defeated, still, like someone who had gone deep enough inside themselves to find something solid at the center that no external storm could reach. And from that stillness, you moved forward, not dramatically, not loudly, just one deliberate step, and then another. The operative put the scope down, not permanently, not yet. But in that moment, the operative sat in that invisible room and felt something that years of professional conditioning had trained out of them, genuine, unmanufactured, involuntary respect. Because in all of that experience, watching human beings under pressure, nothing like this had ever been encountered. Hesitation arrived, and for a professional whose entire value depends on acting without hesitation, hesitation is catastrophic. Hesitation is the beginning of a question. Questions are the beginning of doubt, and doubt is the beginning of the end of any operation that depends on one person's unquestioning execution of someone else's agenda. A paycheck was sent for certainty. What the villain was now getting was someone sitting in a room full of questions. Why is this target unbreakable? What is it about this person that makes every designed pressure point fail to produce the expected result? Is the story I was told the complete story? Those questions came directly from watching you. They came from your refusal to perform helplessness, even when you were surrounded by it. Your presence kept broadcasting something that no professional instrument of detachment could block out indefinitely. Your light got into the cracks. And once light gets into cracks, the structure it enters is fundamentally and irreversibly changed. The operative had a choice. On one side sat the money, the professional identity, the years of building an expertise in exactly this kind of work, and the safety of completing the job and moving on. On the other side sat something that had not been felt in so long it was almost unrecognizable, something your energy had woken up like a match, striking after years of damp. Call it a conscience, or call it what it actually was, recognition, soul recognition. The operative had watched you so long and so closely that you were genuinely known, not the intelligence file version of you, but the actual version. Your courage was known, your depth was known, what you had been walking through and how you had been walking through it was known, and the more that was understood about you, the less possible it became to remain the weapon that had been contracted. This person is not your savior. The devotion that has developed is real, but it is also complicated and potentially dangerous in its own right. Someone who spent all of that time watching you, learning every detail of your patterns and convincing themselves that a deep connection existed, that person does not automatically become safe simply because the agenda has changed. Someone trained in getting close to targets and manufacturing the sensation of intimacy does not shed those skills with a change of loyalty. The chasm is real. What it is about to offer you is real, but you need to receive it with your full intelligence engaged. Stay sovereign in your own authority. Your discernment is your most powerful navigation tool in the chapter ahead, and you are going to need every bit of it. While all of this was quietly imploding inside the operation, the person who started everything was beginning to come apart. Here is the truth about stolen foundations. They require constant maintenance. Every day lived on stolen ground means actively keeping the truth underground, managing the story, monitoring the people who hold pieces of it, keeping money moving in ways that do not leave obvious trails, staying perpetually vigilant. And perpetual vigilance creates a very particular kind of exhaustion, the kind that does not show up in the face but lives unmistakably behind the eyes. The composure is still there, but look closer, and the fear underneath is no longer quiet. The sense that something is slipping, that the carefully constructed narrative has developed a crack somewhere that cannot quite be located, has become a constant companion. And what cannot be shaken, no matter how much logic is applied to it, is this: a living, breathing human being was used as an instrument. Tools do not develop opinions. Tools do not sit alone at night asking whether what they are doing is right. Tools do not look through a scope at an assigned target and start seeing a human being who deserves protection rather than harm. The operative was never a tool. The operative was a person with a history and with something inside, however buried, that still knew the difference between right and wrong. And in the obsession with controlling outcomes, the full humanity of the person hired was completely overlooked. You did not overlook it. You could not have, because you never knew the operative was there. But your energy did what it always does. It reached into the full humanity of every person around you and activated the best of what it found, even in someone deployed against you, even in someone positioned as your enemy. You activated the conscience of your enemy. That is not a small thing. That is a power that no surveillance report can detect, and no paycheck can neutralize. You deserve to have it named clearly, so you can stop wondering whether you imagined it. Attempts were made to shut down your intuition, specifically and deliberately, your inner knowing, your ability to see through constructed narratives, your capacity for discernment, were all identified as the primary problem. As long as your perception remained clear, you could not be fully controlled, so people were positioned close to you, who were not who they appeared to be, feeding you uncertainty, and trying to make you doubt what you were sensing. Attempts were made to isolate you from your sources of genuine support. Strategic interference reached into your closest relationships. Misunderstandings were introduced at critical moments. Situations were designed to leave you feeling slightly outside the warmth of the people who should have been closest to you, because an isolated, doubting version of you is a far more manageable version of you. Attempts were made to derail your financial momentum. Every time you approached a new level of stability, something materialized to set you back, because financial power would have given you the ability to stand your ground without needing the approval of anyone operating in the villain's orbit. Every single attempt failed, not because you fought back with equal force, not because you knew what was happening and outsmarted it. Your covering operates at a level that darkness simply cannot access. What has been assigned to your protection works even when you are not consciously invoking it, even on an ordinary day, even when you have no idea there is anything to protect yourself from. There were specific moments when something was clearly set up for a specific outcome, and then, at the precise moment of execution, something intervened, a delay, a shift, a chain of events that fell out of alignment in ways nobody could have predicted or manufactured. You walked away from those moments not knowing how close they were. Let that knowledge build your confidence rather than your fear. Your protection is not passive or circumstantial. It is active, specific, and operating at a precision that no human plan can reliably outmaneuver. That is the kind of backing you have been moving through life with, and knowing it fully is exactly what you need as you step into what is coming. Chosen ones, I need to interrupt the narrative here and speak to something directly, with love and with zero tolerance for it continuing. You have been moving as though you are still carrying the weight of what was done to you, and the reason is understandable. The interference was real. The exhaustion of pushing against manufactured resistance was real. The disorientation of having your perception deliberately targeted was real and cruel, and you did not deserve any part of it. But you are not the victim. You are the protagonist. There is a massive difference between those two positions, and it is time you occupied the right one. You did not get targeted because you were weak. You got targeted because your rise changes the entire power dynamic of this situation. Your voice, once fully empowered, tells a story that cannot be controlled. Your financial elevation removes the leverage that has been used to keep you at arm's length from what is rightfully yours. Your clarity, left unobstructed, will illuminate every dark corner of what was done. Serious resources were not spent on stopping you because anyone thought you were fragile. Those resources were spent because the people who deployed them understood clearly that you were not. So stop moving through this story hunched under the weight of what was done to you. Start moving through it the way you were built to move through it. Shoulders back, eyes forward, full authority, zero apology. You are not a survivor, limping toward the finish line. You are someone who ran the entire race with a weighted vest and is about to discover what your real pace feels like when it finally comes off. The weight is coming off. Walk like the person the villain always knew you were. What was at stake was your legacy. Not your legacy in some abstract, distant future sense. Your actual, material, real-world inheritance. The specific resources, authority, and recognition that were meant to reach you and were being actively intercepted. Something that, had it arrived in your hands, would have changed your position entirely. It would have given you a foundation to build from. It would have given you grounded, tangible power that no one could threaten away from you. That is what the entire operation was protecting against. Not just your voice, your foundation. Your arrival at a level of stability and authority where the crime committed against you becomes indefensible and the ability to manage your perception of yourself becomes impossible. The goal was to keep you brilliant but constrained, gifted but blocked, close enough to the life you deserved that you would keep reaching for it, but never quite stable enough to actually land on it. That is a calculated cruelty, and you have felt it without being able to fully name it, the sense that something is perpetually just out of reach, the feeling of working at full capacity and still not quite arriving, the inexplicable gap between who you are and where you stand. That gap was engineered, and now the engineering is failing. The foundation of the operation is cracking from the inside, not from any attack you launched, but from the moral collapse of the person who was trusted to hold it together. Every resource mobilized to keep you contained is about to have its origins made visible. You are about to inherit what was always meant for you. The operative knows everything. The decision has been made, and the loyalty has flipped completely and irreversibly. What began as a job to neutralize you has become a mission to vindicate you, not out of heroism, not out of complete personal healing, but because your light did something that cannot be undone. What was done to you was wrong in a way that even hardened professional ethics cannot justify. An unexpected witness now exists, and that witness knows everything. The villain built this operation on the assumption that hired loyalty would hold indefinitely. That is the mistake of someone who has only ever used people as instruments. The interior life of those people goes unconsidered. The possibility that proximity to something genuinely good could rewrite a person's entire moral operating system was never factored into the plan. Your grace got into this person, and it rewrote them. The villain is now standing in the middle of a story they authored, surrounded by evidence they funded, facing the one person who knows every chapter of it, and realizing, with the cold clarity of someone watching an empire begin to tip, that the weapon built to destroy you has become the instrument of their own exposure. The divine cleanup does not announce itself with drama or fanfare. It moves quietly, with the serene authority of something that has always known how this ends. What is happening around your life right now, the surfacing of truth, the emergence of witnesses, the unraveling of carefully maintained narratives, that is the cleanup in its full, unhurried, unstoppable operation. What is coming for the villain is not coming because you went after them. It is coming because the truth came for them, and the truth found its guide in the last person anyone expected. You need to be prepared for this, because the truth moving in your direction does not always arrive looking the way you expect, and if you are not ready, you might miss it or mishandle it. The operative coming forward is not going to be a clean, dramatic presentation of evidence with a bow on top. It is going to be messier than that, and more human. This person has their own complicated relationship to what they know and how they came to know it. Surveillance was carried out. Early stages of a plan designed to harm you were participated in, and now the same person wants to be part of helping you. That is a genuinely complicated position to speak from, and the way it comes out is going to reflect that complication. You might experience it as someone entering your life who seems to know a great deal about you without a clear explanation of how. Someone who offers information, protection, or connection with an urgency that does not quite match the apparent length of your relationship with them. Your instincts will fire when this happens. Let them fire. Do not dismiss what is being offered simply because of who is offering it. The truth is the truth regardless of whose hands are carrying it. But do not override your discernment out of relief or gratitude either. Receive the information and sit with it before you act on it. Let the evidence prove itself over time rather than handing your trust over in a single transaction. Here is the specific distinction to watch for. Someone who brings you what you need and then steps back is a genuine gift. Someone who brings you what you need and then ensures you remain perpetually aware that you needed them for it is still operating on a personal agenda, a different agenda than the one they started with, but an agenda nonetheless. Your perception, the same perception they tried to shut down and failed to shut down, will tell you the difference. It has not failed you yet. It is not going to start now. The villain does not sit quietly and accept consequences when the operative flips. Panic sets in. and a panicking person who has spent years constructing and maintaining a false narrative becomes a very specific kind of dangerous. The first move is always to discredit the witness. Watch for a sudden shift in the story being told, claims about the operative's unreliability, carefully planted doubts in the minds of anyone who might be listening, a concentrated effort to reframe the person now positioned to tell the truth as unstable, agenda-driven, and unworthy of belief. Recognize this for what it is: projection. It is what people who have built everything on a false foundation do when the foundation is threatened. They accuse the truth-teller of the exact thing they themselves are guilty of. When someone responds to a witness not by addressing the specific facts but by attacking the witness's character, that response is its own confirmation that the facts cannot actually be refuted. Attempts will also be made to pull you into a direct confrontation. Situations will be engineered through intermediaries or through events that seem to happen naturally around you that are designed to make you react visibly and emotionally. A visible emotional reaction from you gives something to point at. It allows the narrative to shift from what was done to how you responded to what was done. Do not give them that. Your power in this moment is not in confrontation, it is in composure. The battle is already being fought on your behalf by forces that do not require your active engagement. Your role right now is to stay clear, stay grounded, stay on your path, and stand in your full authority, not aggressively, not defensively, but completely. Stand as someone who knows what belongs to them and has permanently stopped pretending otherwise. That quiet, unshakable, drama-free authority is the single most threatening thing you can project to the people who have spent this long trying to manage how you see yourself. Be that, right now. Just be that. Let me take you back to where we started. The room. The small, deliberately invisible room with the food wrappers on the floor and the makeshift place to sleep. The surveillance scope on the table. The life of someone who made themselves a ghost in service of someone else's agenda. Stand in that room again. But this time, stand in it knowing everything we now know. Who lived here, who sent them, what was planned, what failed, what shifted, and what is coming because of the decision that was made inside these walls. Watch what is happening in that room right now. The person who lived here is packing, not running. There is a clear difference between the two. Running is panicked and directionless. This is purposeful. This is someone who has made a decision and is moving with the clarity of a person who finally knows which side they are on. The scopes are going into a box, not to be used again, but to be preserved as evidence. The room that was designed to be invisible is about to be described in full detail to the people who need to know it existed. The life that was lived without a trace is about to leave a very specific and very consequential trace. This room, built as the operational base of a plan designed to stop you, has become the place where your vindication was quietly prepared. The weapon was sharpened in a room you never saw, for a purpose you were never supposed to discover. And the resolution lives in that same room, the beginning and the end occupying the same space. The darkness and the turning point happening in one small forgotten corner of the world, housing the moment when the person deployed against your future chose instead to become your most unlikely protector. You have been moving through a war with a grace that had no business surviving that environment, and you survived it. You have been targeted with resources and strategy and cold professional expertise, and every single plan failed. Your perception was targeted, your opportunities were blocked, your path was deliberately steepened, and you are still here, still building, still speaking truth, still operating at a level that turns enemies into witnesses. That is not luck, that is architecture. You were built for this, built to withstand this, built to come out of it, not just intact but elevated, because everything that was used to destroy you became the very thing that made you undeniable. Your inheritance is on its way back to you. The resources that were rerouted are finding their way to their rightful destination. The voice they tried to silence is about to speak to people who are ready and waiting to hear it. The path that was artificially steepened is about to level into something that will feel like flying compared to what you have been carrying. And the operative, the trained, calculated, professional ghost, who was positioned to be the final instrument of your undoing, is the one now standing between you and the people who sent them. You turned a hired weapon into a protector, not through strategy, not through counter-manipulation, not through anything other than the pure, consistent, irresistible force of being exactly who you are. That is your power. That is what they saw and feared and spent real resources trying to neutralize. And that is what cannot be neutralized, because it does not operate through effort or performance or protection. It simply is. It is what comes off you when you walk into a room. It is the thing that makes cold people feel things they spent years building walls against. It is the thing that rewrites a person's sense of loyalty and justice by proximity alone. You are not a chosen one because life has been easy for you. You are a chosen one because life was engineered against you, and you are still magnificent. The war is ending. Your chapter is beginning. The room with the scope is being emptied. The villain is watching the foundation crack beneath what was never theirs. The truth is walking in sunlight, and you, shoulders back, eyes forward, full authority, are walking directly into everything that was always meant to be yours. You were the whole point of it. Now go collect what belongs to you.